Get off the screen. Is up, everybody. It is Friday, and you know what that means over here at Player Profile. That is right. We are here to do some DFS on the Big Tilt, and I'm joined by my friend Joe Pisapia over there from Fantasy Pros. What's going on, Joe? How you doing?
What's up, Chase? I'm good. A little tired, but good. Working on the baseball book, if you can believe it, already for December, doing football stuff. It's a fun week of betting. We had a lot of good bets on Monday and Thursday night come in, so I'm in a good mood, but a little tired, but it's okay. We got plenty of juice left for a little DFS talk, and there's a lot of interesting stuff out there, especially with this slate. This is the first time I feel like in weeks that we've had that full slate of big-time running backs available too, so that's going to change a lot of things. I think a lot of people are going to run to there, so I'm going to run the opposite direction and go very heavy quarterback and wide receiver because that's how I roll. Yeah, full slate, no buys, and a bunch of the RBs who aren't playing on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football for a change. So it's a much different looking picture than we've seen in like a month.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, I mean, we should see a little bit heavy ownership on not only the running backs, but the quarterbacks as well. But we got a full slate available for us.
Yeah,
we get to play around with some of these higher end wide receivers because we know where the chalk is going to lie and is not going to be on the wide receiver. Spoiler alert. But, more so like I think that this week we kind of have to focus more so on what games we're playing more so than ever. Like, we still don't have those obvious games, which I think is good for us on DFS, right? We don't have that 55-point over-under on any game. In fact, I don't think we have a single one over 50 points. But this kind of still allows us to get in with the game stacks and try and attack these individual games while trying to play the studs, of course, a wide receiver. But I'm looking at this slate like I want to play double stacks all day.
Yeah, it's definitely that kind of slate too. And the London games also throw a wrench into these. So between the buys and the London games and who's playing on all the different primetime games, you just haven't had this sort of mix of talent all together. So this is really refreshing and really interesting. And it is going to be a little bit more wide open. Last week, with all the buys going on, it did look like it was very chalky to go with Kansas City. It turned out that was the very right decision to go. And a lot of us, including me, faded away from that a little bit and wish that we did not. But now is a chance to redeem ourselves in week 8, and that's a good thing.
Kansas City was tough because the offense just hasn't been producing at the level that we're used to them producing at. So the prices that we have to pay every week, it just wasn't worth it. But last week was the week to hop on that. This week, it feels like the games that I really want to dive into are going to be the 49ers, Bengals, and then the Rams, Cowboys.
I can't disagree. And I hope that's not a foreboding for us. But in terms of the game script and going back and forth, yeah, those do feel like the ones that have the most potential. And I'm in on Cincinnati. I was in on Cincinnati. I bet it already earlier in the week on Sunday night, looking ahead. We usually do our Monday look ahead show over at Betting Pros. And to me, that's one that I think the sharper people are going to be on. We'll see what happens in terms of the quarterback situation. I'd be shocked if Purdy plays. We just, it's very rare you get anybody who gets in the protocol and plays in the same week. It's just rarely that you see that. But there are other stacks to like. But in terms of the games and approaching them too, I think the one that you mentioned too with the Ram situation with Dallas, that to me might be the most appealing one on the slate.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. I'm ready to rock and roll. You ready to kick the show off, Joe?
Let's go, baby. Let's do it.
All right. We are here. We are ready to rock and roll. We're ready to talk, of course, some DFS and dive into this slate. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about our studs, the guys that we really like, for this upcoming slate, the guys we want in all of our lineups, those stacks that we really want to play. Then we're going to end up we're going to build a lineup. After that, we're going to talk about some of the dudes we want to avoid, right? Which, spoiler alert, for those that watch the show every week, Joe Mixon is on this one yet again. I think he was on the one with us last time we talked, Joe. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Not against San Fran, especially.
Yeah, and then last but not least, we will talk about some of our sleepers and build a third lineup. So let's go ahead and let's kick this off. Let's talk about some of our studs, Joe. Where do we want to go this week? Where do we want to kind of build that foundation for the rest of our DFS house?
Well, look, I feel really good about the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase pairing. I know that's the one you're going with, but that's also my favorite one. I'm also good with having T. Higgins as the alternate there in some lineups as well, or even having both of them because, like you said, I think Joe Mixon is a fade this week. If you want to get really weird with Tyler Boyd, that's a tough one. Derek Brown was trying to sell me on that today. I'm not having that one, but you have them coming off a bye. T. Higgins had been banged up all year. I think that extra time is good. You also have the extra bit of news where Joe Burrow is taking practice snaps, which is very important. He's not working out of the shotgun, which means that calf is probably feeling better. So that kind of news and the suppressed price here on DraftKings of Joe Burrow and on FanDuel as well is one that I want to take advantage of. So I would really like to get involved in that game. I think the Dak Prescott trio with CeeDee Lamb and Pollard going with that trio is also really intriguing as well. I think there's a lot to glean from that. And I don't think the Eagles are going to be caught off guard this time by the Commanders. So going all in on the Eagles this week in a full stack is also appealing to me.
Man, I feel like we're on the same page, which is scary.
It's
scary. I mean,
good.
When I'm sitting here when I was going through my show sheet, right, I'm like, dude, I feel like we're going to have some agreements here, but we can't come up with the same ones. But I mean, honestly, we're on the same exact page. Something makes me nervous, of course, and it always makes me nervous is paying up for quarterback, because when you pay up for quarterback, you're typically paying up for wide receiver as well to pair them with. And then you got to go, or tight end, like a Mark Andrews type situation. And then you have to end up paying down at multiple spots, which always kind of worries me a little bit, because you know how the quarterbacks are, man. We can get some of these lower end price quarterbacks that could end up producing at a high level and play all the studs that are on the slate. But, as you said, like I love Hurts, right? I love running out Goedert over there. And, AJ Brown is somebody that I'm actually going to be fading this week. Once again, getting a little bit ahead of the show sheet here, but I like the connection between Hurts and Goedert to kind of get a little bit contrarian on this. I mean, AJ Brown, when he played, was up against Emmanuel Forbes, who weighs 165 pounds, like soaking wet. And he just dominated, Emmanuel Forbes. AJ Brown did.
Yeah, so 35 yards in that game, not too shabby. The only problem is, though, I mean, Hurts is super expensive, 8,200.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you look at Burrow's price at $6K, it's $300 cheaper than CJ Stroud, who's a quarterback I like this week. But how can I possibly justify Stroud over Burrow? I don't care about, look, San Francisco defense is very good at giving them all their respect, right? And I know they've lost a couple games, and I've made money on those losses, so I'm very happy about that. But at the same time, if you're going to give me that quarterback, and people, I think, in the general public are still say, oh, Burrow against 49ers, I don't think I want to do that. I think it's still the way to go when you're looking at this quarterback slate, because the other pivot down is, again, to a bunch of guys that, the Derek Carrs of the world and Geno Smiths and Russell Wilsons, and you just don't love those situations necessarily for them.
No, I mean, and honestly, the 49ers, we saw it last week. They've been okay, right? They've had great matchups, but
it's $100 cheaper than Prescott. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm on board with this. Let's go ahead and let's build this lineup. Let's start out with Joe Burrow, since that's what we're discussing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you have to go with Chase on this one, especially considering, where he plays in the slot, where the 49ers give up receptions. Yeah. Of course, the guy in the nickel right there, he's given up 90%, I believe, completion rate on targets, which is 29th of 30 qualifying nickel corners.
They have not been good, and you saw Minnesota expose them. You even saw Cleveland expose them to a certain extent, too, at times with PJ Walker. So, that's the thing. The teams that are built to just run the football, they're always going to struggle against the 49ers. But if you can throw the football, and Joe Burrow can, this is a good situation. And I'm with you. I still, it might be chalky, whatever. Like I said, differential-wise, you want to have a Higgins and a Burrow and a Chase and a Burrow lineup. I'm good with that. If you want to have one where you have all three together, you can go completely gangbusters on that one, too, because I do think they will both have a touchdown in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to go double. Like I said, this just feels like a double stack week. And with Higgins at 5,900, I mean, it's not like he wasn't getting targets. He just wasn't catching those targets.
Right. And you do expect the 49ers to keep this game somewhat competitive regardless. Even if Sam Darnold is playing quarterback, I know Debo's out, but you still have Christian McCaffrey. You still have Kittle. You still have Ayuk. You still have pieces here. So I imagine the 49ers are not going to just lay down and die here, especially at home. So I'm not expecting that, which is a good thing, because you want them to push the total. That's what you're looking for.
So do we think that we're going to be able to fit Christian McCaffrey in here? Are we trying to go George Kittle? What direction do you want to go?
Well, look, at the running back position, I think the first guy that I keep coming back to on DK this week is Breece Hall. You know that he is the guy there. The Giants are terrible against the run. They are 27th ranked against the rush this year. And you're seeing, that going in Breece Hall's direction in terms of the backfield. So I'm looking at this right now. I'm looking at the last 2 weeks for him. Against Denver, he was great. Terrible run defense. And then against Philly, which was, a much tougher one. He had trouble running the football, but he was getting involved in the passing game. 5 catches on 5 targets for 54 yards. So he still put up 20 DraftKings points. So to me, Breece Hall is that must-have running back this week at that cost.
All right, let's do that then. Let's go ahead and plug in Breece Hall up against the Giants. I love that take. Breece Hall is going to be one of my studs this week, of course. Are you completely off of anybody from San Fran, though? Like, are we going to run it back at all from, on that side, thinking that they could score?
The problem is McCaffrey's just so expensive, and then you have to cheap out in multiple spots. So I don't love doing that because you have so many options at running back this week. I think if it was thinner at running back, it would make a little bit more sense. But I think, as much as that lock McCaffrey touchdowns there and all of that, and you can make that case and you want to be involved in the back and forth in this game a little bit, I get that. But because of the uncertainty of, number one, Brock Purdy's health, if he does play, if there's a re-injury, and then you have to move to Sam Darnold, or also what Sam Darnold is, I don't like uncertainty with my investments. So this is not a game I'm running back. Whereas if you want a game stack, Dallas and the Rams, that one I'm all for. That would be the Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb run it back with, probably Cooper Kupp. But then you have to really cheap out in a couple different spots there. But I think that's a game where you could see it going back and forth with the total, where it makes a little bit more sense to be completely involved and then find some cost-saving guys, which there are this week. Those guys do exist.
What about a tight end? I mean, George Kittle is sitting out there. The Bengals haven't been good against the tight end this year. They've allowed some big games to happen. I mean, is Kittle an option to run it back?
Kittle is an option to run it back. I think a safer one too, especially if Darnold plays. I've been, again, because I've been so heavy on some of these wide receivers and the, full point PPR and DK, I've actually built some lineups with Trey McBride this week, who's going to be playing, and Dallas Goedert. To me, those are the two best values at tight end this week. You mentioned Goedert at the top of the show. I think he has a really good opportunity in this game. So I would prefer to go there. Kittle has just been super inconsistent. So the fact that we're going to find that consistency now all of a sudden with a possible change of quarterback, it's a little bit of a tough sell for me at 5,400 when I could save almost $1,000 and go down to Goedert. So Goedert or McBride to me at just 2,800, that free square guy with obviously no Zach Ertz this week, limited options there. They're going to be behind. They're going to have to throw the football. I kind of like where that could land on there too. He doesn't have to do much to return that value, and he allows me to go up to all these different spots.
Yeah, I mean, I love Trey McBride. Great call on that one. That's one of my favorite plays of the week, of course, at the sleeper range. We'll figure out where we're sitting money-wise, and we'll see if we can pay up or go down. So we're going to skip on Kittle for now. Let's go ahead and let's plug in a DST just to, get a placeholder in there. I'll go ahead and throw up.
I got one for you. How about the Atlanta Falcons against Will Levis and Malik Willis and whatever else the Titans want to throw at you at quarterback? How about that defense?
Let's do it. I was about to go Jacksonville up against Pittsburgh, but I'm down to take that one too. That's a great matchup.
Kenny Pickett at least has some sort of awareness of playing quarterback in this league. The Tennessee Titans, I mean, this could be brutal here. They're already jettisoning pieces. Bayard's gone. Hopkins is on the trade block. Maybe Derrick Henry's on the trade block. I think this team is starting to implode on itself, and that's a perfect time to go target against it.
Well, it's crazy because this team was supposed to be in a rebuild. That's what we thought they were going to do in the offseason. They go out, they acquire DeAndre Hopkins. It just got a little bit bizarre there for a little bit, thinking that they would, run the table and somehow make it in with this deteriorating roster that's been falling apart from us 3 consecutive years.
And I'll tell you what, if you really want to go Oppo, you would have to also consider potentially the Bengals at 2,200, because if Sam Darnold is playing, then you might have an interesting opportunity there too, where you could get some sacks and some things of that nature.
Yeah, some strip sack return for a touchdown, which is the highest paying play for a defense over there for the DSTs. I think that's definitely a possibility. Now, I do have a player for you, Joe, that I got to get your opinion on, and that's Rhamondre Stevenson, who, we saw him pretty much just turn into this pass-catching back while Ezekiel Elliott takes touches in the middle, but he's up against the Dolphins this week. And Rhamondre Stevenson is a guy who hasn't really hit what we wanted him to hit or reach those expectations, primarily because of Ezekiel Elliott, or at least we feel that way. But But up against the Miami Dolphins, if he is that pass catching back, we could see New England in a losing situation. I mean, it just feels like this could end up coming to fruition. Now, he didn't do it the last time that they played, but how do you feel about Rhamondre?
I know the Patriots are coming off that win and everybody is, saying, hey, Patriots, and as a Patriots fan, I can tell you this offense is still bad. I'm more curious about Javonte Williams coming off his best game here. He is a very cheaply priced running back, 15 for 82 last week. He also had 4 targets. So that's a good thing here. And the other running back too, that I think needs to be strongly considered is Isaiah Pacheco too, against the Denver Broncos, who are just the gift that keeps on giving. So if I'm going to go to that range, Pacheco, I think makes a lot of sense. I had this argument with Derek. He likes Javonte. I like Pacheco a little bit more, but if you want to play team implied totals, that's the way to go. I think.
Yeah, if you're playing off these games, right, that have the higher scoring ones, you want the running back on the higher scoring opportunity. For me, I was thinking more so volume in the reception game, just because Rhamondre Stevenson can get you to those 6, 7, 8 reception type games. And typically with his yards after the catch, they could end up resulting in some bigger opportunities. But I mean, you talk about the values that are cheaper than Rhamondre. Like, I love Javonte Williams. I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to be chalk this week for DFS. But in this lineup, I don't think that he's going to get played, a whole ton in this, I guess, this type of build. So I'm down for whatever one. What you want to do?
I think a lot. You take a pick here. Pacheco, Javonte, I think those guys are really interesting in that price range where I think they have touchdown equity. I think they have a good opportunity. And again, I think this is a week where people are paying up for a lot of these running backs as opposed to us who might be trying to do the opposite here. I also think, I know you're going to laugh a little maybe about this, but Najee Harris against Jacksonville is interesting because they give up a ton of receptions to running backs. And if that trend continues where Najee starts catching the ball a little bit more, that could also be an interesting one. He had 3 targets last week. I don't know if that's something, we want to chase necessarily, no pun intended. But that's
we took Joe and Chase to start the show, by the way. So you can make all the puns you want following this.
It works for me, baby. It works for me. But I'm open to any of those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and take Javonte in this one. If you would have said Jaylen Warren, I would have been on board with you. But you went Najee Harris, which is just gross for me. I don't know. I just can't get on.
It's different. If he gets you 50 points again, next thing you know, you're in a good spot.
True. All right, so now we're sitting here. We have about 5K left. We still have a tight end that we need. Do we want to go and try to fill this in to see what kind of budget we have left at the tight end position? Or would you rather go with one of the tight ends you suggested and try and fill in the rest of our lineup?
Let's take a look here. I think there's definitely some other values at wide receiver that we should talk about because I think that's the most important thing to get. I think some of the guys that really make a lot of sense this week, I think Pickens is really interesting against Jacksonville. I think Zay Flowers is another very interesting wide receiver too that people should be looking at that opportunity. If you want to go down a little cheaper too, Rashee Rice has touchdown equity. He's got a cheaper price tag at 5K. And if you're looking around through some of these other spots recently as well, there's been the emergence of guys like Josh Downs. Josh Downs at 4,800 this week in New Orleans. To me, that makes a ton of sense on DK as a price saver.
Dude, honestly, I love Rashee Rice. I love Joshua Downs. I love Tank Dell. I love a lot of receivers in this range.
I think was it week 2? You and I were on Tank Dell or whatever that week was.
Oh, yeah, dude, I was all over Tank Dell.
We built. Yeah.
It was great, man. It was great. And, Joshua Downs playing out of the slots. We know that the Saints are great outside, the numbers. We know that they struggle up against the slot. So Joshua Downs, very, very interesting there as well. I'm down to honestly, and this is going to happen, by the way, in a lot of quarterback pricey lineups, right? When I'm playing one of the top 3 guys, I'm going to have a lot of dual wide receivers in this range, depending on where I'm trying to go. So honestly, I feel like we could go with Rashee Rice. That kind of plays off of the Javonte Williams in a high scoring, type scenario. Mm-hmm. It also kind of gives us a little bit of leverage on that game. Yeah. You want to go with Rashee Rice?
Sure, absolutely. I'm good with Rice. So whenever in doubt, always go with the guy playing with the best quarterback on the planet. I think that's always a good thing. Hard to be wrong there. All
right, so let's see. We talked about Trey McBride, who has a tough matchup at 2,800, and then the other guy that we brought up was Goedert at 4,600. If you go to 4,600, if we go to Goedert, we'll be playing in the mid 6K range for our last player in the flex spot. If we go down to 2,800, I mean, we're talking about anybody. We could play anybody that we want to, pretty much.
Well, let's try the Goedert floor and then see what it looks like first. Because again, at tight end this week, I do think there are going to be some pretty good performers. It's hard not to think Kelsey's going to be good again. Andrews and Hawkinson are in good spots too. After that, it's a big question mark. So, I mean, you have those top three guys that I think everybody feels pretty good about. Then after that, you don't know the health of Waller. What else is new? Ingram's been just fine, but not earth-shattering. Taysom Hill, you never know what you're going to get out of him. Schultz, Pitts, and we talked about the inconsistencies of Kittle too. So I think having Goedert is, especially the later trend these last few weeks of Goedert being a very good one.
Now, last week, I'm just going to throw this out there. Last week, we had one of our best performing DFS lineups because we ran a Kelsey and a Mark Andrews in the flex. So dual tight end lineups, which I know some people swear against, but I'm just throwing it out there. It's been our best scoring lineup.
Let me tell you, I don't on those shorter slates too when there's less talent. I mean, why wouldn't you want the guys catching passes? See, that to me never makes much sense. If Kelsey performs like a wide receiver and so does Mark Andrews, what are you worried about there in smash spots? So I don't have a problem with that at all, that logic. Does not bother me.
We do have 6,400 left, and Mark Andrews is in there. Now, I'm not saying we should play Mark Andrews. I just want to throw it out there.
I got no problem with that.
But another player I really like this week is DeAndre Swift. I mean, I think Swift has an excellent matchup up against Washington, who has not been doing well up against pass-catching running backs the past couple weeks. Swift has been commanding targets more so than what we've seen any Eagles running back do with Jalen Hurts thus far. It's somewhat of a weird situation because the Washington defense has completely shifted off of what we knew them to do earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. And now they have like Jamin Davis going one-on-one up against running backs. And it's worked out well in terms of the reception percentage, but he also is giving up a tons of yards after the catch, which we know Swift can generate yards after the catch. So Swift is right here in that range for us if we decide that we want to go with the 3 running back mold. Olave is pretty sexy up against Indy, who their best corner is normally playing in the slot. So he'll have all day to run those routes. We have Amari Cooper. We have Pacheco, who we already talked about. Where do you want to go here?
I think you started off in the right spot, to be honest with you. I mean, I think you made a very convincing argument for Swift. I like the Eagles' implied total in this one, too. And the only thing you have to worry about sometimes is a little bit of the, Jalen Hurts gets down there and, the brotherly shove their way into the end zone so it could steal some touchdown equity away from him. But the argument for him catching the ball in the backfield, too, and kind of being the all-purpose guy is good enough on DraftKings for me where I think you're guaranteeing the most touches of the football there with Swift or the guys you mentioned, which is definitely appealing to me for sure.
All right, let's go ahead and let's throw Swift in there. We're going to go ahead and hit submit. Do we like where we're sitting with this?
I do. What do you think of it, Chase?
Honestly, I'm stoked on it. I think this is a great lineup.
Putting two heads together. There you go.
Dude, it just works out with us. We just work out, and we still got $100 left, so we can go to the bar after this. All right?
That's it. Finally, now we're talking. Let's go.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna submit this lineup. And while I do, Joe, could you tell us a little bit about some of these players that you would like to fade for this week?
Yeah, it's funny, Chase. When talking about fading some of these things this week, I think a lot of it has to do with fading just games completely. And that's an easy one for me. There's some things you can cherry pick from a couple games. But for instance, right now, fading away from that Jets-Giants game, looking at the Jets defense and Breece Hall, that's it. Looking at Atlanta, Tennessee, I just think it's gross. I like the Atlanta defense. Like, that's the way I'm looking on that game. Same thing with Cleveland, Seattle. Like, the Cleveland defense travels. I think Cleveland's defense is still in play, but I don't think anybody has a gauge on the offense, and you can't love anything Seattle's going to do necessarily. And that advantage in their home building is not the same as it used to be. So I think for me, it's full fade of a few games here, which is nice because it allows you to kind of focus on just some of these games that really matter. And there are going to be some one-sided affairs. It's going to be Baltimore, Arizona's one-sided. KC, Denver's going to be a little one-sided too. You might have some sneaky ones on there. I mean, there's a chance where Jacksonville, Pittsburgh becomes the sneaky game. But I keep coming back to that other one with you, which is that Dallas Rams game, I think is more appealing than people realize. And I'm very much in on Cincinnati this week.
Yeah, I mean, well, I love the Cincinnati matchup. We've already talked about that, but I got to fade, Joe Mixon just because that's the regular thing. And then, I know that you like Pacheco, but at his ownership cost, I just don't see the ceiling there.
No,
you know?
and I get that. I totally understand that, and I think that's the good argument against it. But once again, sometimes it's just that easy where you look at something and you go, can he return that value at that cost? Yeah. Does he have touchdown equity? Yeah. Are they going to score a ton of points? Yeah. Like it's a decent lineup builder. I don't love it in the tournaments, to be honest with you, but I think in cash games, I think it still tracks pretty well.
Oh, he's locked in for cash games. He's absolutely locked in for cash games. It's just tournaments. It's like, man, if I don't play him and he goes off, what is going off for him? Is that like 23 points? Can I make up for it? Or am I lost?
I mean,
like,
you have
am
to
I
have
done?
multiple touchdowns. That's what would have to happen there. I think.
True. All right. We got to build another lineup. You ready to go?
Ready to go. Let's do it.
Do we want to go Jalen Hurts? Do we want to play a pricey quarterback just to see what the bones would look like?
We could give it a shot and see if we have to pivot down, or we could do a Dak Prescott cheap one too. Either way, I'm good.
Let's save the cheap one. Actually, no. Let's save the expensive one for the last build, so that way we can talk a little bit about our sleepers. And let's go with a cheaper quarterback here.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it.
Which guy? You brought up Dak Prescott. I think that's interesting. I also really like the side for Matthew Stafford. Where would you like to go?
I think the Stafford one, we keep waiting for Stafford to really have a day, quote unquote, and it keeps always disappointing, I feel like. I don't love Jordan Love as a quarterback, but he keeps putting up fantasy points, and the roster percentage is going to be low.
Yep.
I think it's a decent matchup here at home for him. Stroud is the other guy, too, that I think is really interesting in that cheaper price range at 6,300. So to me, it's Stroud potentially, or it's Dak Prescott that makes a little sense in terms of the pivot down where you still have a high enough floor. Because once you go past that, it's just you're really asking for trouble, I feel like.
Well, there's one guy. I think there's one guy that we at least have to mention, and that's a guy that's been playing well the past couple weeks, and you don't really want to run the ball up against this team. I mean, they haven't been great up against the running back, but they've been very good, and they've been stiff to an extent, and we think that team is fading. And if there's a lot of turnovers close to the goal line, but you can't run the ball, you could see some play action, some potential rushing opportunities for the quarterback. Desmond Ridder. I mean, Desmond Ridder, it's not sexy, but he's one of the cheapest quarterbacks on the slate, and he's been returning his value, the past 2 or 3 weeks, I believe?
If this was at home, I'd give it a little bit more hope. I know he still put up 16 points last week. You imagine what Bijan would be better. If you want to have a little fun and go crazy, I'll do it with you.
We got 17 points, 22 and 29 over the past 3 weeks. And, I mean, we're talking about 5,100. I mean, this is an average. His average points are right around the 7,500 price range. I just want to throw it out there.
I can't argue against it, so we might as well give it a shot.
All right, let's do it. We got Desmond Ridder with Tennessee. Now, I don't want to get too risky. I don't want to go out there and I don't want to play Kyle Pitts and Drake London, right? That's just scary.
No, I think London.
I couldn't sleep the night before if I did that,
Well, it's either London or what you want to do potentially is take advantage of the fact that everybody's so sour and down about Bijan Robinson, and that would be a way to go as well.
Would we be able to double stack? Do you think would we be able to go Bijan and London or Bijan and Pitts, or do you want to stay as slim as you can in this matchup?
I want to be very careful here with Ridder, so I'm going to pick just the one guy there. You imagine that Bijan touches the ball more, so that feels like a little bit better. It's also one of the cheaper prices I think we're getting on Bijan Robinson down to $6K. He was in that 75 range not that long ago, so it's a big discount. So taking advantage of that is interesting.
Now, can I interest you in Traylon Burks as a potential guy?
No. Case, you may not interest me in that at all.
I mean, Will Levis has a big arm. Traylon Burks average yards per reception
is not an NFL quarterback. And this is not new. This is not a hot take. This is something I've been saying since January, since reviewing him. But I will say this: if you're looking for a cheap wide receiver to kind of get involved, again, the total for this game is less than thrilling. So if you want to just get Ridder and Robinson and get out, I am mad at that. If you want to stay with the defense, I'm okay with that. If you really want to cheap out and then go with the Bengals defense and do something different there, I'm also interested in that too, because that could be intriguing.
What about a Conquo in a matchup where they might have to get creative?
I love the salesman in you, Chase. This is why Trophy Smack hired you, because no, stay away from this.
All right, we're away from that game. We're getting away from that game.
On fire. All right.
Let's go ahead. Let's throw a defense in there. I would love to go with the same one that we went with the last time. I think there's plenty of opportunities there, right? If Atlanta's dominating this game, this could be an interesting stack in terms of
Sure.
trying to leverage.
If you want to save 700 more, I'm okay with the interesting Bengals one too, because I think.
Oh yeah, we could go with that one. We did discuss that.
A little weirder, yeah.
Let's go with the Bengals then. Let's do that.
Because this would allow us to get up to Cooper Kupp. This would allow us to get up to a couple other really interesting pieces.
Okay, so we're sitting I was going to say we're sitting pretty. We ain't sitting pretty. This is not a pretty lineup so far. But we can be sitting pretty by the end of it. So where are we going to go? Are we going to take shots on Tyreek Hill? Are we going to take shots on, some of these other, more expensive guys? Are we going to try and leverage off and maybe go with some contrarian takes?
Well, look, let's get into that Rams Dallas game, because we didn't get into that one yet. So I think maybe you get into this with Kupp and Lamb and start there, or Kupp and Pollard. I think either of those, or all three of them for that matter, because I think you could probably do that with with bare bones we've started with here.
I love the Kupp and I love Pollard. I like CeeDee Lamb this week, right? I'm not saying that he's going to do poorly. He's going to be, around the 12 to 15% rostership for me, so I'm not going to have a ton of ownership on CeeDee.
Coming off buys too. I mean, if you look historically, like he starts to really cook after that typically. So
really?
Again, yeah, interesting. Some interesting stats on there. Or if you don't like that, there's AJ Brown, there's Devonta Smith, there's getting back into that Washington game against the Eagles that we like so much.
Yeah, so I went with Pollard and Lamb. I was unaware of that stat, so thank you so much for that, Joe. Yeah. You're educating me right now. I appreciate it.
Once in a while. That's
That's a great nugget, though. That's a great nugget. I've never seen that. All right, so we have Desmond Ridder. We have Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Cooper Kupp.
It's a lot of talent there. It's looking much better now.
Now we're cooking. So we have about 4,200 left. I feel like this is an opportunity to play Trey McBride as a cheaper option.
Agreed. Let's go. This is the Stars and Scrubs lineup. I think that's what this one is.
Yeah,
it might bottom out, but if McBride and the Bengals defense do something and Ridder isn't embarrassing, this dog certainly might be able to hunt. So now we're in that back against the wall territory. We got to go find some value here. I think this is your Rashee Rice territory potentially. If you want to go there. He's around 5K if memory serves. Josh Downs is around 5K. Tank Dell is around. So you have all of these guys. Or if you want to continue to pound the table, you got Drake London in this range as well. Kendrick Bourne coming off 2 good weeks in a row. He could be an interesting one as well. The roster percentage will be low on him. So all those guys are in play. I'll let you pick these guys. I feel like I've been heavy-handed. You pick the wide receiver and the flex here.
I mean, we could go Tank Dell and Josh Downs. We could go Rashee Rice and Josh Downs.
I think Rice and Downs makes the most sense in terms of, trying to play, going with that boom or bust kind of scenario. I think that kind of makes a lot of sense here to me.
All right. We are in there.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a good one. So we got Desmond Ridder, Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, McBride, Downs, Bengals defense. This is just a weird one, man. This is just getting a little freaky. All right. Well, I hit enter. We gotta do something because the people need to know about this, Joe. The people need to know about Mojo.
This episode brought to you by Mojo. Mojo is that player stock market. We love Mojo because we like making lifetime bets on players. You run out the clock on these guys. Mojo just rolled out a brand new fantasy platform. That's right. So now you can build a portfolio of player props. Oh, Jamar Chase, over 77.5. Oh, Kadarius Toney, under 15.5. Whatever the under is on Kadarius Toney, doesn't matter. You can just stack up the props in your portfolio. And the beauty is, once the Sunday games kick off, it's not over. It's not over until it's over with Mojo, because once those games kick off, you can then move in and out of positions. Let's say that you're well ahead of expectations. You can cash out. Let's say you're behind expectations. You're underwater. Well, you can double down. That's what makes Mojo so special, why they're different. Check it out. Go to the App Store, get the Mojo app, and use the promo code Underworld. The promo code Underworld gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. So the promo code is Underworld, and they will match your deposit dollar for dollar Go to Mojo, start building your portfolio, and then during the games, you can be a fantasy day trader. Woo.
All right, Joe. We got one more section left. We got to talk about our sleepers. Who are our sleepers this week, whether it has to do with ownership, whether it has to do with just not being seen, the guys that are going to outproduce their numbers? Like, what are we talking about? Where are we looking? You gave us DJ Moore back a few weeks ago, and that was
we did okay on that one. The rebound of DJ Moore, week 1, people wrote him off way too soon. I think when we were talking about that grouping of wide receivers, I think, again, Tank Dell is in play this week. I do think that Rashee Rice, but also Amari DiMercato, very cheap piece this week that I think could very well be in play. Again, he keeps on the field for snaps. That's very important. That's what we're looking for here. Some other guys too. I think George Pickens would be a sneaky good play, especially if Deontay Johnson's a little banged up here. So keeping a close eye on that one. Looking through some of the other lower cost guys, because there's so much to like this week, because it's a full slate. I think this is a little bit tougher because, you know the thresholds are going to be a little higher because there's so many good players on the slate. So I think you have to be very careful of how far down the trough you go. I think McBride is one of those guys at tight end that's really intriguing because you're always looking for free square value kind of guys, and he fits that. So he's an interesting one to me. But I think, you don't want to go too far down. I think you want your lineups to have a really good floor this week because I just think it's going to be tough to get, into those pay lines without those elite guys. But as you see, as we built these lineups, it's not that hard to do this week where you can build these really good solid floor lineups, but also have a lot. I mean, it's easy to put Hall, Chase, Pickens. There's one more guy too, who's really cheap, 3,900 is Rashid Shaheed. I think had he caught that touchdown last week, we'd be talking a lot more about him. He's got a, decent enough matchup here against the Indianapolis Colts, who are not great in the secondary. So I think Shaheed's another guy too, and the tournament play would be really intriguing to me.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed almost all the takes. I will say Brandon Cooks is somebody that I want to keep an eye on. You can beat the Rams deep. We've seen it happen from week to week, and it's a way to leverage this lineup. I think that Brandon Cooks is a guy who caught a touchdown pass last week, and although I don't want to chase the points, he's cheap. So, all he has to do is get you to 15 fantasy points, and you're in there. Give me, 60 yards, a few catches, and, a touchdown, you're there. So I think that Brandon Cooks is an interesting one, especially if you want to play the Rams Cowboys, but not want to hit on that chalk, because there's not too many ways that you can go in that one outside of what, is laid out for us. So let's go ahead. Let's build our final lineup. And we want to get expensive on this one, right? We want to talk some big time numbers at the quarterback position. We've got Patrick Mahomes. We've got Jalen Hurts. We've got Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa. Where would you like to go out of all these quarterbacks?
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we put Shaheed, McBride, and the Cincinnati Bengals defense in there? And then that should give us enough to really start with Hurts, who I think probably has the best opportunity to get all the points on the board because he controls all the points in his offense. I think that would probably be the best of the route in order, because we're already starting then with a very low threshold. We're going way down there with McBride. We're going way down there with Cincinnati. And that's what you want to do. You take the shots on things like the defense. You take the shots on another wide receiver like Shaheed, who, like I said, has touchdown equity. Carr's thrown 300 yards back-to-back weeks. I think things are looking up a little bit for that Saints offense, despite the fact that they fell short there and can't catch balls in the end zone. Foster Moreau, I'm looking at you. At you, Foster Moreau. But now we have Hurts. So the question is, who are the expensive guys we want to pay up for? Do we want to go right for A.J. Brown, or do you want to pivot down and get weird with Devonta Smith?
Honestly, I just feel like Washington, with the way that they defend, they don't like to get beat twice by the same players. So I think we're going to see triple coverage on A.J. Brown this week. That's why he's one of my slight fades. I'm not fading him entirely because that'd be stupid to fade a guy that literally broke fantasy against the same team a few years ago. But Emmanuel Forbes, I don't know, has played a snap. Yeah, I don't think Emmanuel Forbes has played a snap since the Chicago game, the one that followed the Eagles game. Mm-hmm. So where, he also got torched by DJ Moore. So it's completely different secondary that we're seeing. Meanwhile, they're not bringing their safeties up to cover the defensive backs. They're allowing Jamin Davis to do it, like we talked about earlier in the show. So we're probably going to end up seeing some sort of double, if not triple coverage on A.J. Brown. I think that opens the door for Goedert. I think that opens the door for Devonta Smith.
All right. Well,
and Swift.
Well, let's try Swift and Smith then, and that should be an interesting one too, because then we're fading A.J. Brown, but we're all in on the Eagles, and if we get all of that right, well, that's going to be a really good day for us.
Devonta Smith at 6,700.
Still a deal. Yeah, it still allows us to probably go up to get Chase or somebody else, would be my opinion. All right, I would think so. So now you don't have to go Goedert here because we have McBride. So let's keep pounding the wide receiver and running back. So I love Breece Hall as a running back. What other running backs are you looking for? You want to go here with Hall and Swift? You want to take two of our guys here?
I actually really like Swift stacked with Jalen Hurts because I think that's going to fade the chalk. There aren't too many people that are going to play Swift because there's still that stigma out there that Hurts doesn't pass to the running back, which has not been the case this year. He has actually involved the running back in the receiving game to an extent. I really love the thought of Rhamondre Stevenson just going off up against this Miami Dolphins. And I don't think that the Patriots offense has to be good. I just think that he has to be involved. And if the Patriots are losing, he's going to be involved because they can't pound it with Ezekiel Elliott.
What's the cost on Stevenson? Let's see if you
I think he's at 6K, 6,100, somewhere in that range. Give me 1 second.
So let's click on there. Let's take a look.
We are looking, he's only at 54.
All right, that we can play around with that if you want. Let's go ahead. Let's try to get Stevenson. Let's get Swift in there because I know that's your boy.
All right, let's do it. Hey, I also love Hall this week, and I love Javonte Williams this week. I mean, you're hitting on all cylinders in terms of the running backs we discussed.
Well, look, I think we kind of see the slate the same here. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if Travis Etienne had a good day either. But again, let's see what money we have left here. So now we've got our big wide receiver, our big flex. We got more than 7K on each of them, so we can go high-low if you want, or we can go, right in between, get two guys at that same cost. The trouble is the guys around there, look, Thielen's been very good. If you stop there in the scroll up just a tad, Kirk's been very solid as well. Those are two interesting guys. They're very good floor guys, but I don't know if they have enough boom here. So I think I'm more tempted to go up to some big dog wide receiver and then find another guy to cheap out with. So the question is, who's your favorite big dog wide receiver? Is it Chase? Is it Hill? Or is it Kupp?
I mean, if we want to play this game, right, the Patriots did a great job of taking Tyreek Hill out of the game for the most part outside of a 2-yard reception for a touchdown back when they played early in the season. So I actually kind of like the thought process of fading Tyreek Hill and going with Jalen Waddle, who was a leading receiver when they went off earlier in the season. I think he had it for 83 yards, if I remember correctly. So,
the only concern is the Waddle health. That's the only thing. How is that back? Is he feeling all right? I know he's crept up on the injury report during the week too. I don't have a problem with this one, but again, it's 7,500. Just out of curiosity, what would it look like if we went? Who is your favorite big dog wide receiver if it's not Hill this week? Is it Kupp or is it Chase or no, it's not AJ Brown. You already kind of made your case against that.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't hate AJ Brown. I'll still have him in some shares, but not a ton.
Sure.
Now,
and we're already invested in Hurts and Swift, so we're attacking that a different way.
I love Jamar Chase. He's probably my biggest lock of the week.
So let's put Chase in there, and then let's see what it allows us after. So after Chase, that gives us, what's our cost remaining?
6,400.
6,400. That's still a sweet spot for a lot of
these
pieces here. Jonathan Taylor's in this grouping. If you look down, considering on Mark Andrews, who I think is also, again, a really good spot there. Breece Hall. So, you've got so many options here, or you have T. Higgins if you want to double tap that bad boy as well. So there's so many ways you can go. I know Addison's been consistently good, but I don't know if I want to go there against the Green Bay secondary, who's pretty decent. But to me, this is a really good grouping to be at. I think going double with, I think Mark Andrews is perfectly fine here. I don't have a problem with that. But again, if there's another player, running back or wide receiver that really pops to you, I'm curious to hear.
Honestly, Chris Olave is really interesting just because I think that the secondary
But do you want to do with him and Shaheed? That's the only question. You already got Shaheed in that line.
That's a good point. Is it going to be high
Jonathan
scoring?
Taylor
enough?
also could be interesting here. If Jonathan Taylor has himself a vintage Jonathan Taylor game, that would be, because Jonathan Taylor, when he ramps up, one of these weeks is going to look like Jonathan Taylor. And if this is the week, this is the last time you're going to see that $6,200 salary.
He had a good week last week, primarily because of the receiving game, if I recall. And he's still working himself
18
back.
for 75, 21 points. To me, this is a really interesting piece here at this cost.
Let's do it, man. Let's throw Jonathan Taylor in there. It makes plenty of sense. It's contrarian play because people are going to see that number 3 next to his name and they're going to get scared to click that play button. I mean, the Saints really haven't played too many great running backs. So I'm on board with that.
There you go. This is a good one. A lot of star power, little stars and scrubsy, but not too much because I don't think Shaheed is a scrub. It's really just McBride who's got to just do a little something. If McBride can get us 8 points in there, that'd be a good day. We'll take that and run away, and the rest we can just kind of rely on the volume. And I think this lineup gives us a ton of volume with the running backs and some good enough volume there between Chase and Devonta Smith too, potentially. This is a really good one as well.
McBride, can you do something for me? Let's go. I love it, Joe. I appreciate you coming on the big tilts for week 8, baby. We're going to get out of here, man. As you guys can see, I'm not at my home location. We are sitting here in Cali right now. I'm on my laptop. I'm afraid it's going to crash any second now, so I need to get Joe off before we do crash. But, Joe, before we get off, let everybody know where to find you who doesn't know. Which, if you don't know, you should.
They don't know by now, but Chase, thanks for having me. It was great to hang out and talk a little DFS with you. You can find me on X at Joe Pisapia 17. You can find me at Fantasy Pros, at Betting Pros on the YouTube channel, and also you can find me on Sports Grid TV every Sunday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, doing the NFL pregame show. So you go check that out too. All your streaming services have Sports Grid TV. You can find me there every Sunday talking ball. Great to hang out with you. Let's hope all these lineups cash big time. That's what I want.
Oh, we're making money this week, Joe. We're cashing in. We're going to go to Vegas, bro. We're going to end up spending all of our winnings and blow it all on the stuff that we don't know anything about, right?
There you go. There you go. And we still got that money left over for drinks, you said. So let's get out of here.
Yeah, and I'm going to buy myself a badass NFL Blitz shirt like you got on. So, I got things I need.
Randy Moss, old school, baby. Let's go.
Absolutely love it, man. Thank you guys for joining in. We will see you next week for week 9.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.